Hey, podcast listening people, welcome to another edition of the B2B Mentors podcast. I'm honored to have you here listening, tuning in. Please do me a tiny favor. Make sure you share this. If not only for you, I guarantee you there's somebody else in your network that's going to get great value out of this podcast because I'm bringing you top business celebrities, marketing experts, strategists, and real practitioners to help you expand your horizons on the world of B2B marketing, sales leadership, business development. And with that, of course, I have a treat for you today, a guest that I'm going to pull up on stage and introduce to you, my friend, Greg Perotto. Did I do that right? Did I call it correct?
Very well, Connor. Very well. Thank you.
Greg Perotto. He is a global marketing leader, passionate about building brands, seasoned marketer, creating categories and disrupting the status quo with better ways of doing things. And you'll definitely learn what I mean by that here in a minute. Over his 25 plus year career, he has led, coached, and developed teams to build brand and grow revenues at Secureframe, New Relic, TripActions, Hootsuite, DocuSign, T-Mobile. I mean, just like legendary players out there, which is really cool. So I'm absolutely honored to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Connor. It's really my pleasure to be here. The honor is all mine.
And I got to know, what is it that makes The Devil Wears Prada such a great rewatch of a movie? Because I had to call it was on your LinkedIn profile. I had to call that out.
There's just so many great one-liners in that movie that I don't know, just naturally come to mind just in life. Yeah, I would encourage everyone to put it on their top Netflix playlist and watch it the next opportunity they get, or when they're on a plane. It's a great movie to play in the background when you're working away on your laptop with the screen in front of you and getting the benefit of all the great one-liners.
No shame on my part, although it's a movie about fashion and high class, fashion industry and everything. I mean, it's a great movie. You can't go wrong there. There's definitely some great one-liners there, and every time it's just entertaining. It is a good one.
Yeah, and the actors that are in that movie, Meryl Streep,
oh my God, dude, she's amazing.
Annie, yeah, they all are amazing in that movie. So it's great to watch. I can't even count the number of times I've seen it.
One of those just like probably passed by, a lot of people's radar, but is definitely one of those great classics. So I had to call that out. Hope you appreciate me for that.
Yeah,
but
you make me want to watch it this weekend.
I know. Maybe we'll have to do it. Maybe we just stream it here while we're doing a podcast instead, and really open people's eyes to the power of the Prada.
Yes.
So I want to understand this for everyone's context. What is it in your life, your career, like what got you rolling into the world of marketing, and then eventually major marketing leadership with some of these top brands?
It's interesting. My foray into marketing goes all the way back to 10th grade in high school. And I had this amazing, so we got the opportunity to take elective courses, and I chose marketing. My father had been in sales and marketing, and I thought it sounded interesting. And I had this amazing teacher, Sherry Sollers. Remember to this day, I'm still in touch with her. And just incredibly inspiring around what she taught, the way she taught, and how she made it so engaging. And as that sort of snowballed into, there was an after school extracurricular activity called DECA, which back in the day was Distributed Education Clubs of America. Now they've dropped that because it doesn't really mean anything, and they just call it DECA. But she had put an open call to the class about going to compete at the DECA state competitions. And for me, being a 10th grader in high school, what I heard was the opportunity to go hang out with my friends at a hotel away from my parents and just have a good time. But I'm also the kind of person that takes stuff seriously if I'm going to be and get behind something. So I went to it with the expectation I'd have a great time, but I also, you take a test in the subject matter that you sign up for, and you do multiple role plays with experts in the field. Looking back, they would have been people about my age and tenure. And lo and behold, come Sunday night, the night of the banquet, I took first place in everything that I participated in. And I remember thinking, not so much that it was easy, but that it just was natural, intuitive, and made sense. And so I was like, well, everything I did is what I would have just naturally said or done in those interviews. I remember one of them was, you were a general manager of a hotel, and you had a guest complaint, and the guest was in front of you and their family, and that was the judges, and you had to sort of handle the situation and resolve it. And that was a little bit further away from marketing, but certainly gives you a broader look at different things that you deal with in the business world. And for me, the conversation was just natural. I treated them the way I would have wanted to be treated in the situation. I did whatever I could that was possible to resolve their situation and make it better. And so that sort of inspired me to, okay, now I'm going to sign up for more elective classes in marketing for my junior and senior years. I got involved with the student store and was a product merchandiser and manager for Otis Spunkmeyer cookies, which I love to this day. And it was just a great experience overall. And then I ended up going to the national competitions. I didn't do quite as well at nationals, but it made me think the school I want to go to for college has to have a business program and emphasis in marketing. And so it was 10th grade, Sherry Sollers.
So I'm grinning ear to ear because you're the only person I've interviewed so far that literally same exact scenario in my case. 10th grade.
It's you? Oh my gosh.
Took a marketing class. The teacher was like, wow, this stuff just comes naturally to you. I'm like, yeah, like I love this. I like to say,
exactly.
And you're probably very similar in this aspect, is like business is our sport. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That is, we just nerd out about business and marketing and branding. So I eventually was president of DECA and FBLA in our high school 2 years, in a row, did the traveling to nationals,
went to, awesome.
We did Disneyland one year, which was just,
we did Anaheim too. But you and I couldn't have been in the same
or Disney World,
generation.
Florida.
Okay, ours went to Disney.
Yeah, you're a couple years younger than me, so I probably was in before you were. What state? What state were you?
I think you have that the opposite way around. I believe you're several years younger than me. I was in Oregon. Where were you?
Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the nationals was in Colorado during my tenure in high school.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is. Yeah. It's so amazing. I mean, it's just like it's crazy. It is one interesting aspect of that. Totally opened a whole door. I'm like, oh, I was built for this. Like I was meant for business and marketing and entrepreneurship. It just came very second nature. So that's so cool. Like those of you listening, I was grinning ear to ear just hearing your story. Doing that.
I remember when I was a senior, I was not quite I didn't have the political motivations to go after state or national office, but I do remember helping others with their campaigns and being able to get them into state office and national office as well.
That's
weird,
so cool.
Parallel.
Yeah, like seriously, same but different.
Yeah.
So okay, awesome. So that kicked it off and did the college deal, and then last couple years, I mean, what was that momentum moment in your career where like these massive companies are, coming at you to bring you on board in these marketing leadership positions?
It's what I would say is there's been a strange series of fortuitous events. So going back to when I interned in college, I interned at 3 different companies. One of them was based in Portland. One was in Seattle. The one in Portland was a construction, mining, forestry, dredging equipment manufacturer, but I was in advertising for them. I worked at an ad agency as an intern in Seattle. And then I also worked at a marketing agency that was based out of Chicago, whose primary client was McDonald's. And if you're an HBO subscriber, you might have watched a documentary about some fraud that was happening inside that business after I had left. I think that the head of IT was giving out the award-winning Monopoly pieces to friends who suddenly were winning millions of dollars in Corvettes and stuff. But two of those three companies offered me jobs outside of college. And one of them, the job was in internal communications, which, as much as we just geeked out marketing, you can imagine wasn't really of interest to me. And that was the one that was based in the town that I grew up in. And I flat out said, I really appreciate the job offer, but this isn't what I want to do in my job or for my career. And she had said to me, she said, well, I know your work product because you've interned here now for several summers and Christmases and that sort of thing. And I think you can do this job really well. What's holding you back? And I said, well, I don't want to do internal comms. I want to do marketing, advertising, PR. And she said, well, what if I said to you that if you do the internal comms job well in the first year, I'll give you all the other stuff on your 1-year anniversary. And that to me was pretty intriguing because I like the idea of earning your way and earning your path. And so I took the job, and I kid you not, 1 year into it, at 22, 23 years old, I was running marketing for 250 million of the 500 million in annual revenues for this company.
Wow.
I was running public relations. I was running advertising. I was doing the product PR, the product positioning and messaging in partnership with other experts in the business. But it was sort of like being willing and open to stuff that maybe isn't exactly what you expected or anticipated. And being open to those other opportunities because they might bring other things to you. And similarly, after that company, I went to a PR firm. You might have heard of it, Fleishman Hillard. At the time, it was the biggest PR agency in the world. And the office that I was part of had been an acquisition. And it was right around 2000 where there was a lot of challenges in the tech world. And they were going through layoffs. And my GM had said to me, hey, I think our whole office is getting closed later this week. Here's a contact over at this wireless company, VoiceStream, that you should reach out to and start the process. And, that being my first confrontation with a prospect of being laid off, it freaked me out. And that night, I sent my resume off to VoiceStream Wireless. That Thursday, an SVP came up from Portland to Seattle and laid off everyone in the office except myself and one other person.
Wow.
And I was very fortunate that the client that I was working on was half of that office's billings. And the client said, if you lay that person off, we will be going to another agency. So the client saved my grace. And
speaks testament to the work you're doing too, as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it certainly is about earning your way too, right? And so 3 months later, I get a random call from VoiceStream Wireless, who's interested in interviewing me for an internal communications job. So again, being open to it and knowing that it was internal communications, but within marketing, I interviewed for the position. Another 4 months went by and they offered me the role. And by that time, I had survived 5 rounds of layoffs in this agency. And I thought, well, I think this is a sign that I should go on to something else. And that VoiceStream had already been acquired by T-Mobile. And I was brought on as part of the team to transition from VoiceStream to T-Mobile in the marketplace. What did that mean for our customers? What did that mean for employees? What they did today would they still be doing tomorrow? What would be different? And it was the first time that I really understood the value of a vision and where you're headed, and how important that is to inspiring people to want to be a part of that journey, whether it's your customers and prospects, or it's your employees, or your partners, or investors. And I remember the vision that we had was big and bold. It was to be America's most highly regarded service company. And you think about at the time,
were you there when John Legere was CEO?
No, it was before John's time. The CEO was Robert Dotson.
Gotcha.
And the reality was the wireless industry was second to last only to the airline industry in customer satisfaction, if you look at JD Powers.
Yeah.
So to not only say we wanted to be the best in wireless, that wasn't good enough. We wanted to be the best across all industries.
And you were doing the internal communications?
I had started doing internal communications, and then I got again, fortuitously promoted because I had given notice, and another executive in the business had discovered that I was leaving and had worked with me and said, "Hey, we need to go get this guy," and brought me onto their team, and then allowed me to relocate and supported my partner who was going to graduate school on the other side of the country. And so for me, it was all about that big, bold vision and how you bring that to life. And so, I was part of the team of 3 people that put on the first ever concert on Alcatraz, called T-Mobile Rocks the Rocks. And we did it as part of a national promotion across all of our retail stores as we launched T-Mobile nationally and built out our network to include California, Nevada, the Carolinas, and some other states that weren't part of it. So my role rapidly expanded beyond that to where I started in that role with 1 direct report, and I left with 52 people on my team and a budget of $50 million. And my peer group were all SVPs. I was a director and then a senior director. My peer group were all SVPs of retail and customer service and business operations. And the amount of gratitude that I owe that boardroom table of people that I got to interact with, it built my business acumen like nothing ever could have. It was a crash course in
I imagine
being taking off your departmental hat and putting on your business hat and making decisions about the business.
and being like what some would consider a true intrapreneur thinking
Yeah,
versus, like just an employee.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I could have approached all of those conversations as, well, this is what you should do from a communications perspective, or this is what you should do from an employee engagement perspective. But instead, I was involved in, should we spend $10 million to open a new call center, or should we spend $10 million on a certain number of new retail stores? And by the way, which of those decisions will get us closer to that aspiration of becoming America's most highly regarded service company? So again, it all came back to an inspiring vision that
See,
people wanted
DECA
to be a
did
part of.
do some good for you back in the day. You got these
Definitely.
real life business scenarios that you're actually applying, and it's clear. So
Definitely.
you like the thinking big, having a vision. What do you see for that? Like, what is your big aspiration, end goal in just even your career? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people say that they've mapped out where they want to go and what they want to do. And as you can tell from the things that have happened in my career, it's really been a series of having the right network, being in the right place at the right time, and somewhat fortuitous. And so I don't have a grand vision of what my career looks like or when my career is over. I look at the opportunity that's in front of me at the moment and think, what can I do to drive the biggest amount of impact for that company in that space? It could be that they're creating a category, disrupting a category, reinventing a category. And then I look at what's my opportunity in the role that I'm going to be doing to help make that happen. And I firmly believe that if you focus on the work that you're doing and do it well, and by the way, you tend to do work well that you love. So find work you love, do it well. Then all of the other stuff will come along for the ride, whatever the next promotion is, or the stock options, or those sorts of things. But it starts fundamentally with aligning yourself to work that you love and focusing on doing that well.
You did a stint with Hootsuite, and obviously huge resource for marketers.
Yep.
What's your biggest lesson from that position there that other marketers should learn, that maybe you see across the board they're not applying, taking advantage of, not even just Hootsuite, but from a marketing leadership perspective?
It's interesting. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it really comes back to a vision and
Mhm.
having a clear, compelling vision for where you're going as a company and what you're trying to do. Because the reality is, I don't know how you inspire people to be a part of something if you don't know what it is. And so that was one of my biggest lessons learned there is making sure that and it's a question I now ask in interviews going forward. It's making sure that there is an inspiring journey ahead that people want to be a part of, because it's very difficult to build a brand around something that there's not a vision, there's not a
For sure.
where we're headed.
So how do you narrow down that vision? Because it may be something different for you as a marketer. We're very like, a lot of the time right brainers and we're super
Right.
excited about stuff, but other folks on team or leadership may see differently. How do you identify and align that vision?
For me, it comes back to the customer, and it's always rooted in the customer. And I would not to get acronymy or technical, but I would say your ICP, right? Your individual or your ideal customer profile. So who is that person that is the best suited individual or professional for the product, platform, or service that you have, that has the best product market fit? What are their characteristics? What are their pain points? What value would they derive from your products or services or anyone in that space? And being able to tell a story, a corporate narrative, positioning and messaging around how you uniquely serve them and uniquely solve their needs so that they can do better, be better, whatever the case might be in terms of what you're bringing to the marketplace. That to me is sort of how you drive alignment. It always starts with the customer. And I find then it's really easy if your frame of reference is what's going to make the customer successful. That's going to drive alignment with your partner in crime in sales. That's going to drive alignment with everyone else in the business, your CFO, your CEO, etc.
Generic response, but not a generic.
But it's true.
Reason.
It's really true.
Well, hold on. A generic response, but not a generic reason behind the response, which is interesting. It's like, well, what do we want to accomplish versus like starting in that vision with the customer? I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to T-Mobile as an example, yes, intrinsically we wanted to elevate wireless beyond where it was. But if you listen to your customers, they were complaining left and right, no matter whether you were T-Mobile or VoiceStream, AT&T, Singular, Verizon, Sprint, etc., complaining left and right about how bad the experience was in wireless. You get locked into a contract, at least you did back then, right? T-Mobile sort of spearheaded that whole change in the world around not getting locked into contracts or devices. You get extra fees on your bills that no one can really explain, or at least you did back then. You get billed left and right and so the entire experience. And then you would call a call center for support, and maybe they wouldn't know how to help you, or they wouldn't have the resources to help you, or wouldn't be empowered to help you. And that leadership team at T-Mobile that I was fortunate to be a part of turned all of that on its head, and made sure that every decision that we made when we came to a fork in the road, the left or the right was determined by what would get us closer to that aspiration and what was in the best interest of the customer while still maintaining a business.
Love it. Before we wrap up, I definitely, because this is a strong area of knowledge for you, and obviously we're in a global economy, a lot of technology businesses that are either dabbling and going, abroad, are starting to, or already there and trying to be more effective. How do technology companies effectively run? And by the way, you've done this in success with hundreds of millions of dollars, millions and tens of millions of customers. And
right.
So what can you teach other marketers, business leaders about, your experience accomplishing that?
Obviously there's a customer element to it in terms of how your customers are the same or different across those markets. But I've seen organizations make the mistake of making decisions centrally within a headquarters, without regard to the impact either on the employees that are then executing on those decisions out in the field, or the customers and what their experience is. And so for me, listening to if you're a marketing leader, listening to your field marketers in region and understanding from them what their customers are telling them, and what they need to be doing differently to localize and drive relevancy with the audience, I think is really important, so that you're not, ultimately you want to have sort of one face to your audience, but you need to tailor that by segment, by region, so that it's customizable and has extreme relevancy for the people you're targeting. So I would say your best asset in that is getting close to and spending as much time with those field marketers and their perspective and their input as you do with the people that you might pass down the hall in your own HQ building.
And then in terms of deployment, Have you had good success leveraging external agencies? Do you try to
Absolutely.
staff up everything internally? And if so, be as specific as possible. Like, what do you recommend there?
Yeah, especially if you're going into new markets. For me, and I'm certain every business is different, but all the ones that I've been in, marketing and sales tend to be the tip of the spear when you go into a new market. And obviously, you're trying to create awareness with marketing. You're trying to drive demand generation to feed sales. And so for me, I would go into a market and I would hire an agency. I wouldn't hire a bunch of marketers. I would start with maybe a key marketer and maybe one or two people as part of that team, but leveraging agencies to help. So, as an example, when I've expanded into the UK, there's an agency I've worked with called Chameleon, who are brilliant, absolutely brilliant at what they do. And you have one marketer or maybe two marketers on the ground that can interact with them. That extends your team, and they have
Mm,
knowledge beyond the UK, and they're specific to um, marketing tactics, corporate communications, PR, et cetera. But I think leveraging agencies is a great way to break into a market. Frankly, if you're going into a market like Japan, you will be challenged to be successful without partnering with local agencies, local businesses, et cetera, that know the market, because it's a very unique market, and it requires that kind of you were talking earlier about relationships. It requires relationships in the market to be successful. And you have to build those relationships with people who will build them on behalf of your brand. It's very difficult to do directly.
yeah. Well, and a lot of marketing leaders struggle managing agency, vendor relationships because they've never had that kind of experience like you who have been on the other side of it, right? You've been in agencies. And
Yep.
so any advice on that front in terms of marketing leaders and entertaining the idea? Maybe they've just staffed to the gills, but leadership wants to make a change. They want to be more lean, more dynamic, maybe get outsiders. How can you effectively build strong relationships with outside agencies?
Well, so you're going to be shocked, but it comes back to, do you have a vision for what you're trying to do as a
Goes back
marketer,
to your
right?
customer. All right, that's it. I got the answer to
Well,
everything else today.
but no, seriously, like, how do you
Yeah.
expect your agency to be able to execute on a vision if you're not clear about what that vision is? So I operate with agencies the same way I do with internal teams, which is open, transparent, right? Sharing with them, this is where we're going, this is why we're going there, and this is how we're planning to get there. And by the way, your input is requested and required and expected at every one of those stages, right? As an agency, you're not just there as arms and legs to execute. I expect my agencies to be a part of the team, to be bringing in ideas, to be testing, and to help us evolve that plan. But the reality is, it has to start with a clear, compelling vision for what you're trying to accomplish and how they specifically help you accomplish that. And so the extension of that vision is clear expectations, clear goals, direct lines of communication, making yourself available, even as the CMO with $100 million budget, making yourself available to spend time with those agencies so they can ask you questions, they can get to know you, they can better understand what's behind your intent, so that they can help support your business. So to me, it's like you've got to treat them as if they're an employee, and certainly as a trusted partner in your business.
So it's good stuff. I mean, the I think especially on the relationship side, like going deep on that is really wise. And I'd love to hear just before we wrap up here, anything else that is super top of mind for you that you want to share with the audience before we wrap up here.
Yeah, I think in terms of reinforcing our comments and conversation around understanding your customer, fundamentally, I have seen over all the businesses that I've been in that you can't understand your customer. You can't serve your customer if you don't understand them. And the best way to understand that customer, because they are a diverse set of people with different backgrounds and experiences, upbringings, etc., diversity across the board. If you don't have that diversity represented in your agencies, in your team, at all levels of your business, and I'll try and share a short anecdote. At that wireless company that I worked at, my boss for a good period of the time was the COO, and I ran communications and employee engagement, reward recognition, but I was also her chief of staff. And she shared with me a story where she was in the board meeting with the rest of the executives, which at the time were predominantly middle-aged white males, and they were presenting the fall device lineup. And back then, the fall device lineup was a myriad of silver and black phones, flip phones, etc., with random names that sounded like characters in a Star Wars movie, like a Samsung C-3PO. And she sort of chimed in as the only woman in the room and said something to the effect of, if you made these devices in colors, I'd buy more than one of them. I know how to change out a SIM card. That's easy. And I would buy one that matches these glasses or this purse or whatever the case might be. And we're missing a market opportunity to sell more devices. We're making this assumption. We're grounded in this assumption that one person, one device. Why can't we challenge that assumption? And she said, and by the way, while I'm speaking out, I don't go out and buy a Cadillac C-3PO or whatever that. I go out and buy a Cadillac Escalade.
Well, you may
right?
sell a lot,
That's true.
Star Wars nerds.
A gold version, yeah. And so she said, there's power in the branding behind what we name stuff. And I think that conversation led to the magenta razor, the gold Dolce & Gabbana razor, the T-Mobile Sidekick being named what it did, and the plethora of
and the Razor is
color that
such a cool phone too.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Razor. The only one that I liked better back in that era was the Pebble, which was also a Motorola device, and it had magnets, and you would pull down with your thumb, and it would spring open. But that was a great device too. Of course, texting on any of those was horrendous. But that conversation, having that diversity, someone that represented at least 50% of the market, chiming in and saying, hey, have we thought about maybe making these in colors, led to an entirely different product assortment going forward, and one that better reflected what the customer wanted.
Yeah, because the customers are diverse. So having that diversity in the room is just vitally important. And come to find out, this woman's name was Meryl Streep, and she went on to be lead in The Devil Wears Prada, and we go full circle.
Oh yeah, not quite. She couldn't have been further from Meryl Streep's character in that movie. She was amazing and a joy to work with, and still has a cult following to this day.
Well, Greg, first off, it's been an honor, getting to. I know we went back and forth and getting on the show and everything. So I'm honored you set the time aside to be here, and super grateful for, your mentorship, your wisdom. Everyone, needs to go follow you, and I'm sure there's companies in the future that maybe you could be working with Greg and learn and become a success. Just by studying others who have done it before. And so, with that, my friend, what is the best way people to find you, follow you, get into contact with you?
Yep. You can find me on Twitter at GT for Todd Perotto. So Greg Todd Perotto, GT Perotto.
You're pronouncing it wrong. It's Perotto. We went over this.
And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well, /n/Greg Perotto. And look forward to connecting with people. And the one thing I'm going to challenge you to, Connor, which I'm going to do myself, is it's been a while since I've been a judge for DECA, and I'm going to look up the local chapters of where we live and see if I can be a judge again in those state and national competitions, because it's a lot of fun on the other side of that table too.
I've thought about it. I want to keynote their national conference someday. So I should probably do that. I think it's a good challenge, and I will honor that and look into what the local chapter here in Tampa area is.
I would like to introduce your keynote.
That would be awesome.
Would be awesome.
Yeah, let's just do it together, and we just make it a whole entertainment. Make it pretty entertaining. I'm sure we could come up with something. You got any special juggling, fire throwing skills? No,
not without burning the whole convention center down.
Okay, we'll work on that in the background. folks listening, thank you so much. Grateful to have you here again. As always, podcast is on all your favorite apps. Make sure you're subscribed. Go follow Greg, connect with him, send him a message, and we'll see you on the other side.